Good evening and welcome to the June 21st meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Meeting is now called to order, and please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will call the roll. Supervisor Lewis.
Here.
Supervisor Grenier.
Here.
Supervisor Blundy.
Here.
Supervisor McCartney.
Present.
I am here. We have a quorum and shall continue. Community announcements. Anybody online that has an announcement for the Board of Community? Hearing none, I'll read what I have. Member of the Lower Makefield Township Park and Rec Board, Kim Rock, is holding a free shredding event at the Township Building, 1100 Edgewood Road, Yardley, on Saturday, July 24th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. The Patterson Farm Master Plan is continuing. The Ad Hoc Property Committee is creating a long-term master plan for the farm, excuse me, and ask for community involvement. The township-owned property is at a crossroads with historic buildings requiring expensive repairs, where they may be lost. Potentially millions of dollars could be needed, but such expenditures cannot be made only to have buildings saved and sit idle. The committee is working with a team of architects, engineers, and land use economists to determine the best and compatible uses for the buildings that could benefit our community and thus support maintenance for future generations. The public is asked to become engaged by A, attending public Zoom meetings held the second Thursday of each month, B, learning more at lmt.org/community/Patterson Farm, and C, attending the public forum on June 26th. That's this coming Monday at 7 p.m. at the Community Center on Oxford Valley Road to review preliminary plans and provide input. Community Day will be held on August 26th at 1050 Edgewood Road, Kids Kingdom, the pool, all the way to the Township Building. It'll be a great day, of course, and join us for food, fun, rides, and more. For information, visit lmt.org/special events. That's all the material I have. Any member of the board have any announcements? Any announcements to make? Ms. Lewis.
How many people out there are Trenton Thunder fans? Because Sunday, July 9th at 5 p.m. is the Yardley Makefield Lions Day at the Trenton Thunder Stadium. And if you'd like to attend the game, the tickets are just $11 and the funds are used for charitable purposes in the community. Yardley Makefield Lions is a community service organization that has done wonderful work in the community. And I'd urge you to consider attending the Trenton Thunder game on Sunday. That's right, Sunday, July 9th, 5 p.m. at the Arm & Hammer Park. You'll see both of the Trenton Thunder's mascots, both Dash and Rookie there. And I'm told the team is pretty good. Tickets are only $11, and they are all in support of the Yardley Makefield Lions Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Board item 5, consider approval of minutes for May 31st.
Moved. Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any comments by the board? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. Item 6, consider approval of minutes for June 7th.
Moved. Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. Item 7, Mr. McCartney.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you delay this until I have access to my LMT OneDrive? I am having an issue logging in.
We will come back to item 7.
Thank you,
Item
sir.
8, engineers report. Mr. Baco.
Yes, hello Supervisors. You have within your packet my engineer's report. I am going to jump right into the agenda items. First is to consider the pay application number 4, the final for the Skylar Drive Tennis Court Reconstruction Project to Keystone Sports Construction, Inc. in the amount of $121,711.37.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor McCartney to consider pay application number 4. Any comments?
So this is the final, Andy?
It is.
Did they get all the issues been resolved with?
Yes. Yeah, all the work has been completed. Issues have been resolved. The project is in use.
Punch list items, none of that?
No.
Any public
Andy?
comment? Oh, yeah.
Andy, I don't know if it's for you. I don't know if Monica's around, but just driving by, I noticed that one of the nets is already seemingly hanging pretty low. So I don't know if that's something that we can just fix easily or if it's related to the project. Somebody,
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
the very first court as you enter from the parking lot.
On that, related to your question then, Suzanne, was the reconstruction project, is it the surfacing or did they put in new nets and net?
Yeah, it was everything. So, yeah. I know that we had an issue with a broken crank out there at some point, and they replaced that. So this may or may not be related to that, but we'll take a look at it and see if there's any concerns.
How does that affect us voting on this evening?
Well, we have a maintenance bond in place. So the work has been completed. There's a maintenance bond in place for 18 months. So anything that's minor like that can be addressed during the maintenance period.
You'd be comfortable recommend. Monica, we're just talking about the Skylar tennis courts, the pay application, and Supervisor Blondie mentioned that she noticed that one of the nets was sagging. So we wanted to make sure that that was addressed and fixed. And as we're voting to pay them, want to make sure that they're aware of it just in case. Okay, I can tell by the look on your face. Thanks Supervisor Blondie, not me. So if we have essentially a warranty for the next 18 months.
Correct.
We can vote to approve and then get things fixed.
Agree. Yes.
Any other comments? Public comment? Hearing none. Call the question. All those in favor of the pay application signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0. Item B.
Item B is to consider pay application number 7, which is the final for the 2022 road program to James D. Morrissey, Inc. in the amount of $61,554.96. There were remediation items that we had asked them to complete, and they have completed those.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we consider pay application number 7, the final one, for the 22 road program to James D. Morrissey, Inc. in the amount of $61,554.96.
Or a second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Grenier to approve pay application number 7 to James D. Morrissey. All those in, any comment?
Yeah, Andy, we resolved everything on the Mapleville situation.
So there's a stretch of Mapleville that is still milled that needs to be paved, and that's going to be paved as part of the 2023 road program. There's another portion on the northern leg of Mapleville where when they were fixing Meadow Drive, they had scratched the surface of some of the paving, and they're in the process of addressing that as well. So
Okay. So for everything in 2022, they should be good then, is what you're saying.
correct.
Okay.
Along those lines, so now the scratching or whatever.
Yes.
I know exactly what you're talking about. One of the residents nearby contacted me about it.
Yes.
So they haven't fixed that yet,
They have not.
but it's covered under 2022?
That's covered under the 2022 road program maintenance bond, and
Maintenance bond bond similar to the warranty we just talked about for the tennis court.
Correct.
Any other comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
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 Ayes have it, 5-0. Let's see.
Item C is to consider escrow release number 7 for the Prickett Preserve residential portion of the development to ELU DeLuca LLC in the amount of $578,382. This is work that covers sidewalk, curb, roadways on the residential side of the development. And we've had an inspector out there who's reviewed the work, and the work is completed, and therefore we're recommending release of the escrow in that amount.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor McCartney, seconded by Supervisor Blondie, to approve escrow release, escrow release number 7 for the Prickett Preserve. Any comments?
We still retain about 2.5 million.
Yeah, there's still a significant portion of
Yeah.
money being retained.
Okay.
Related, how far along, very general, sorry. How far along are they in the overall?
I would say for the site, if we're saying just the residential portion, I believe they've got about 70% of that completed. The interior work is still something that is in various phases. So I can't really comment on the interior work for the apartments, but the site work is about. Yeah.
I forget the dates, but I seem to recall that they are now advertising for upcoming rental units up there. So I'm assuming they're getting close.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of escrow release number 7, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is to consider authorization of a matching funds commitment letter for the Growing Greener grant in the amount of $95,000. So this is as part of the pollution reduction plan. If you'll remember my presentation a few weeks ago concerning basin retrofits. This is basin retrofits for 2 separate basins in the Hidden Oaks development, which is off of Marble Court and Pondview Court off of Bluestone Drive. These are large surface detention basins that are mowed routinely. And again, we are promoting a retrofit of the basin to make it a retention pond with more naturalized basin. That would reduce the amount of sediment by 20,000 pounds a year, which is approximately 13% of what our requirement is for our pollution reduction plan. So it would be a significant project, and we're going after there's a Growing Greener grant that is available that is almost tailor-made for these types of projects. And so that application is due on Friday. We've completed the draft application and provided that to the township for review. And so this is one of the requirements of that application is to commit to matching funds for the match. The match is 15% required, and we're providing a little bit more than that.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize a matching funds commitment letter for the Growing Greener grant in the amount of $95,000.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis to authorize matching funds commitment letter for the Growing Greener grant amount of $95,000. Any comments? Ms. Blondie?
Yeah, Andy, I know we've talked about it in the past, but as we think about that naturalization or, at least enhancement to help with the pollution reduction, can we also think about the plantings to be either a pollinator friendly or something else, so that when people see it, not only do they know they're helping their water supply, but they can also, be happy to know that they're helping with an important issue in terms of pollinators?
Yes, absolutely. That'll be considered during the design.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Is there a public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0. Item E.
The next item would be, I guess, the passing of resolution number 23-15, which is the Growing Greener Grant. This is,
I move that we authorize the adoption of resolution number 23-15, a resolution of the council of the board of the Township of Lower Makefield to authorize the application for the Growing Greener Grant.
Wait a second.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lewis, second by Supervisor Grenier to approve resolution 23-15. Any comments by the board? Questions? Any public comment?
I just want to add that, just so certain parties here understand what they're signing off on. This would hereby designate David Kratzer, Township Manager, and Frederick Weiss, Board President, as the officials to execute all the documents and agreements as part of this Growing Greener Grant.
So noted. Hearing no public comment, other public comment, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving resolution 23-15, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it 5-0. Thank you.
So I have an adjustment to the agenda here. This would be considered maybe E.1. But if you'll remember, at the last meeting, we were requiring a funding commitment letter for the 5 Mile Woods project. This would, as part of the Greenways Trails and Recreation Program grant. That funding commitment was $30,630. We've been notified by DCED that the required match is $34,600. And so that would be an increase of $3,970 that would need to be committed by the board. So we would, an appropriate motion would be to authorize a funding commitment in the amount of $34,600 for the Greenways Trails and Recreation Program grant, the 5 Mile Woods Improvement Project.
Moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis to increase the amount to $34,600. Any comment by the board? Public comment?
I just have a
Oh,
question.
right.
Andy, when you said you have like E-1, so it's an agenda item? Or like, are we okay with it? Because we're spending,
I think we're reconsidering a previous motion. So I don't think it falls under the Sunshine Act, but Tim?
If the board votes to allow this to be on the agenda and it was previously an agenda item, then that would be fine to adopt it.
thank you.
Have to vote to-
When a motion to amend, to add that?
So moved?
Second,
Okay, so motion made to put this on the agenda. Made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any comments by the board? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of placing this on the agenda, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0. Now we'll go back to the original motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Blondie to approve the amended amount. There's no more comment. Any public comment? Not hearing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the increase signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Thank you.
Item F.
The
Mr.
item F
Chair-
is,
Oh, I'm sorry.
there's one more. There's one more.
Oh, go ahead.
so the next item would be to consider bid award for the South Drive Culvert Project. We received 6 bids yesterday. We opened them. The apparent low bidder is Twining Construction Company, Inc. Their low bid was in the amount of $176,568. So this would be to replace the South Drive culvert, remove the existing culvert, set the bedding for the new culvert. Contech, who is the manufacturer of the culvert, would then furnish and install the new culvert. And then this contractor would backfill appurtenances as far as curbing and erosion and sediment control measures. And also it was added to the scope to pave all of South Drive. And so if you'll remember, we bid this project out last year, and that amount came in approximately 238,000. And then with the furnish of the culvert, it was another 46,000. So all told, by rebidding it, we are saving approximately $28,000 while increasing the scope to pave all of South Drive. So therefore, there is a responsible contractor ordinance that has a 21-day period to it. So the motion would, an appropriate motion would be to consider award to Twining Construction Company, Inc. in the amount of $176,568, contingent upon them meeting all of the responsible contractor ordinance requirements.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Blondie, to award the South Drive Culvert project to
Twining Construction Company, Inc.
Construction for $176,560. Any comments by the board?
Just a quick question. Obviously, there was a pretty good range of prices on these, what do we got? 6
Yes.
bids?
Yes.
They're all, I just want to make sure all bids are compliant with all of our needs.
They are, yes.
I never want to look at change orders from a low bidder that ends.
No, it doesn't appear that there would be any change orders as a result of the bids.
All their terms and conditions are apples to apples and.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other comments? Public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
5-0 approved. Okay, thank you, Mr. Buckle. Item 9, Park
you.
and Rec.
Mr. Chairman, can we circle back to item 7 real quick?
Oh, sure. Item 7, Mr. McCartney.
Thank you so much. For 7A, I'd like to make a motion to consider approval of May 2023 interfund transfers in the amount of $779,625.59.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor McCartney, seconded by Supervisor Blondie to approve the May 2023 interfund transfers of $779,625.59. Any comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0. Item B.
7B, I'd like to make a motion to consider approval of the warrants list from June 5th, 2023 and June 19th, 2023 for a total of $1,934,555.54.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor McCartney, seconded by Supervisor Lundy to approve the warrant list for June 5th and June 19th for $1,934,555.54. Any comments? Public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0.
Thank you.
Clarification question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
That amount was for both combined, right? Both warrant
Yes,
lists?
yes. Go to item 9 now. Ms. Bond.
So today I'm here for the consideration of approval of the Heacock Tot Lot Design and Contract to General Recreation, Inc. It's actually a little less than what's on the agenda. It's $85,175. So $85,175 today. This is a CoStarz contract. Would you like me to present first, or how would you like me to present? Okay, so currently the Heacock Tot Lot is between 20 and 30 years. We're a little unsure of the exact date of install of the playground. We adopted the land in 1979. I just didn't know if the playground had been updated since the original. It does appear that maybe it was updated in the early 90s based on what the equipment is. Currently, it's not up to today's safety standards. It's way past its useful life. For an update, the board did approve $100,000 for this project in the last budget. So this is coming in under budget. So we went to General Rec and had them come out, playground designer come out to our site, look at our space and determine. They gave us some options of what we might possibly be able to do. In the end, the park board agreed on this natural concept that you see here before you, with the butterflies and pollinators theme. In the small circle, you see just 2 swings now in the slides. It would actually be this bigger, broader swing set. We wanted to do a buddy swing, which is the new thing where a mom can swing with her child or 2 friends can swing together. And then we do have some elements of ADA accessibility too, but it's meant for some younger children. So this is a, 7 and younger playground, 7 and 8 or younger playground. So this would be the layout with the new playground inside. So you'll see the playground section, which would be under trees, and a couple little rockers in there, along with the whole playground in sight. And then this is what the layout would look like. While it does look like it's on top of trees, it is not. It's under the shade of the tree. So that's the layout now. This is actually on Cardinal Drive. While we call it Heacock Tot Lot, and we've always called it Heacock Tot Lot, is on Cardinal Drive. And so that's the end of the Heacock presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Monica, can I throw you a curveball? It's not on Peacock per se, but there used to be another tot lot over there. Maybe it would be called Rose Hollow. It was visible from Mirror Lake Road, and it looked like a spaceship. So, do we have less little playgrounds now than we used to, say, 20 years ago?
Possibly. I wasn't here for that whole duration of time. I've been here since 2017. So if anything was removed before my time, but nothing was removed since I've been here. So quite possibly.
Okay. I mean, I love this idea. I think we need more of this. So yay.
Well, hopefully we can cycle through. There's a number, our infrastructure is aging across the board. So little by little, we'll try and tackle them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Any comments?
How's this funded? Sorry.
It was in last year's
Excuse me.
budget?
Yeah, so it was reflected in the adopted 2023 budget, being funded through the use of sanitary sewer sale proceeds.
So, okay, so
Yeah.
it's strictly from the excess, the money that we got from the sewer, not within a regular budget.
I mean, the source of funds was the sale proceeds associated with the sanitary sewer system. But yes, it's reflected in your adopted budget.
And I'm curious, in the design, I'm looking at the swings, and are there any, so there's the 2 swings that basically are sort of baby seat swings.
Actually, one of those swings will be a standard swing. So it'll be a baby seat. Thanks for asking that. A standard swing. There's the accessible swing and the buddy swing.
Where would the standard swing be? In the middle or on the?
In the middle. Yeah.
We always have arguments about swings in my family.
I know it's serious business. You don't want to leave anybody out.
The buddy swing is a new thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's fun. Both kids can swing at the same time.
Could be dangerous.
Can you talk about the accessibility elements of the project?
Sure. The buddy swing and the buckle swing, which I'm not really sure the title of that they're both accessible. There's also accessibility ramp. We are talking internally about building, there's a path from the back parking lot or back street to get there. So that's an accessible lot to get to the pickleball. We're looking at making an extension from that to the ramp because there will be a ramp. And this ramp that is here now will actually have to switch to the other side because that's the side closest to the path. So it'd be on the bottom rather than the top of the drawing. But there'll be a ramp to get in to the site. It will be mulched. It will not be poured in place. Poured in place does greatly change the price tag on the project. So there'll be accessibility mixed in with some other more challenging elements.
And on the accessibility component, did this get to the Disability Advisory Review Board or Disability Advisory Board or no?
It did not.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then, so there's the buddy swings, the ramp. There's the butterfly section. Are those all accessible as well too?
It depends on the need.
Mhm.
Some, it would be accessible to some, maybe not someone in a wheelchair, but you know, there's availability for some types of accessibility.
Okay. And then the mulch element, because, you know, we've learned a lot
Mhm.
with the garden reflection playgrounds and stuff. What kind of upkeep issues do we have with that? Are we going to continue to spend every year to kind of keep that mulch up to date? Is it a lot, a little?
Well, we currently remulch it every year.
Okay, so
So
it's
it's
not
not-
additional?
There will be more
Okay.
there now than we do. I can't tell you an exact price tag, but it will be a little bit more than usual, but we do already mulch annually.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been in market for a swing set. So I'm like, all right, and I'm not surprised at the pricing because that seems in line with, you'd be surprised how expensive.
A playground could be,
Yeah,
yeah.
playground equipment
Mhm.
is very expensive. All right. In general, my only ask is all future stuff that are like this, because those folks see things differently and see, you know, I'm still learning, but, making sure that more people can access this is very important, so that everything that we do is for everyone.
Yeah, and that's the whole Play for All theme.
Yep.
So I regretfully did not go for
Yes.
accessibility board, and I will be glad to consult with
Okay.
with them going forward on this project. Just
Yeah.
If there's anything else we can tweak.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of making sure as much as possible is if the buddy swing is, you know, that sounds interesting. Predates, I mean, I am not aware of these buddy swings, willing to learn.
My kids would,
My kids are a little tall for that now, I think.
There's another generation.
It's a first buddy swing in the township.
First buddy swing in the township.
but,
Well,
on I'm just looking at the street view and thinking about access. You kind of coming off the sidewalk, you kind of go up a berm or a hill.
Yeah, that has been a point of contention for some time on the Cardinal side. On the other side, there's a walkway that comes all the way in.
Okay.
I don't know which street is that behind?
yeah.
Sorry.
Probably, yeah, the Cardinal side, you have a little cut in this. And you can,
That's something that's in the transition plan to create a potential ramp up that.
yeah, and generally this generally serves the development there. There's not, it's not like an LMT park per se.
It's a walkable park for anybody who can access in the neighborhood. Some people might drive up, but
So when,
primarily meant for local region.
so when, which
Mhm.
parks are good.
Mhm.
I'm curious, in the original approval of this, when it was really constructed, who built it? Was it the development in the HOA and it was given to us? And we took over responsibility for it? Or was it, we built it because there was space there to do it and there was a development around it.
Jim and I were having a discussion about this. I believe the developer built it and we took over the property. I don't know that they had a playground there when they built it, though.
So it's not written in the HOA agreement that they have to do anything. That's
Not that I'm aware
not
of.
paying for something for
I
them.
don't think.
Oh, no,
there's-
no, no, no. This is our property that we maintain.
I'm just.
I don't think there's an HOA there, Dan.
They don't have an HOA there?
I don't believe so.
Not, well, that part may not. There's two sections, and one does have an HOA. The other doesn't,
Okay.
if I remember correctly. Rose Hollow, right?
Yeah, I think Rose Hall on the other side.
They haven't been in the condo market.
And just to be clear, I mean, we couldn't block people from playing at the park. You know what I mean? Like it's meant for the open
want-
public, but,
Yeah,
but it would be designed primarily as a small park that's walkable.
But Monica, to that point, like those courts are giant pickleball fest, right? People come from around the township to play pickleball over there.
Yeah, yeah. There's the pickleball meetup group that plays there.
Yeah, so it's, you know,
Yeah, it's very popular. Because when we were there last, it was really popular.
Mhm.
Last year we went through but I'm now remembering that hill is a walk. But around it, the other side is okay. It's just a straight walk and there's.
Yes, yeah. And it's paved.
Hmm?
Mhm.
Is it paved, I'm sorry, is it paved to the courts or is it paved?
It's paved to the courts. So we're going to explore doing extension internally. Would be a small extension to the playground. Mhm.
I'm watching, you told me the streets and I gotta look it up. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
Any other comments by the board? Questions? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 4-1.
Then I'm just gonna skip ahead in my slides here. Okay, so Art in the Park is in full swing. We've had a stroll, we've had already a art show in the Memorial Park. We have a few things coming up. So we have an art camp on June 19th, June 23rd. And I did want to put these in community announcements, but I was told I have too many announcements. So here I am. I'm sharing them all with you now. We have a movie in the park hosted by the Kim Rock Group, which is going to be the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is the brand new movie. It's very exciting. We are offering silly stories in the park every Monday at 10 a.m. starting July 10th through August 14th. We have a series of readers. TMA Bucks has a grant on safety, so there'll be helmet safety, air quality as a couple topics. We also have a couple fun, silly stories that we have by a local author, and we have a couple of our staff going out for some of the dates to read some fun stories. And we'll be interactive with the kids and do a little recreation with each one of the silly stories. We have an Ultimate Frisbee Expo on July 19th. That is run by one of our park board members, Doug Kraus, and his son who plays Ultimate Frisbee. So they're going to put that on for us along with some of the students and graduates from Pennsbury High School. We're going to have a hula hoop roundup, which is going to be, we're going to have a camera in the park and we're going to put hula hoops out and maybe a little music will play when you walk in front of the camera and you'll be able to pick up the hula hoop and go at it and get your picture posted online. We're going to do, excuse me.
I plan to attend.
I really hope to see a John Lewis pick. We're going to do a pickleball demonstration for all levels, August 18th at Memorial Park. And we'll do a few Sunday strolls. And then there's a pottery art camp that will be located at the community center, August 21st, 25th. And that's going to kind of cap up all of our events for the year. for this year's sculpture series. Really great positive feedback. A lot of great suggestions for the future. I really haven't heard anything negative about the sculptures being, people are very excited about art and culture, and now we have many more ideas actually, so about how to implement. So that's all I have today. I just want to share some of these events coming up. Check our Art in the Park website on the LMT website. If you just Google Lower Makefield Township Art in the Parks, you'll get right there, and it'll tell you how to sign up, who our readers will be each week, what books we'll be reading, and everything about everything is going to be on there. So that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome.
Item 10, Public Works.
Good evening, Supervisors. I have three things this evening. Item 10A, I have the consider approval for the purchase of a new 2024 Chevy Silverado 3500 pickup with upfitting to include liftgate, snowplow, and emergency warning lights.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the purchase of a 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD pickup truck with upfitting to include a liftgate, snowplow, and emergency warning lights.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Lundy to purchase a new 2024 Chevy Silverado.
Are we getting the comfort package with this one?
Yeah, I wish.
We're not getting the comfort package?
No.
I'll have to drive it.
Well,
Unless you want to plow on it in the winter, we'll get it just for.
well,
We'll get to that.
the other question I had, because I looked at this and I was curious, not that I'm in market for a Silverado, but it's cloth interior, right? And-
Correct. From what I remember, yes, jet black cloth interior, correct.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking long run, does that last longer than leather or what have you?
I mean, the problem right now that we're seeing with all the vendors is like they're
don't
not
have
letting you piecemeal. So if you would want like for example, if you'd want a leather interior,
Mhm.
you have to upgrade to with whatever next line is. I think this is an LT. It's like LT plus whatever the next one is, which adds $5,000-6,000 just for the seats. So they're very the dealerships and the manufacturers are very specific on what they're letting you do piecemeal wise. I think we had to get the LT because we do chrome bumpers for rot reasons. We don't do steel bumpers, things like that. So
And what's the one thing we left out of the whole thing is what's the overall cost?
70.
oh yeah, total cost with everything would be where's my $71,060.96.
That's after a co-star's discount?
Yes, yeah, that's the vehicle. Vehicle price tag, give or take, is 53,000. The upfitting, which is the plow and the lift gate, is another 12,570, and then the decals, warning lights, things like that are 5,239. So total price would be $71,060.96.
I'm looking for it. How are we financing this one, I think?
The
Yeah.
original and
Yeah,
yes.
you got it. You can go
yeah.
in and I
So
can
the
supplement it.
original assumption in the 2023 budget was to finance this purchase over 5 years. My recommendation to the board and to David was to utilize the funds that we brought in from Municipid. We brought in about $64,000 in Municipid sales. So my recommendation would be, you put that 64,000 towards the purchase price, and then the other money we're missing, about 11,000, would have actually been the finance amount for the 2023 year. So utilize the rest of that money and just buy the thing outright. We're done. We own it instead of financing.
Cash.
So if you look at the what we estimated finance wise, we're saving, I think, about $6,000 due to finance charges overall, buying it outright.
In addition to the additional flexibility in the future years, that would have been, again, that financing payment would have been in subsequent budget years as financing obligations. And so by utilizing this and funding it through the realization of that revenue that was not contemplated through the sale of the assets and the work that the department did to realize those, our thought is to put that towards this. And again, it would create additional budgetary flexibility moving forward.
Rates are a little bit high now relative.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Did someone buy that Ford Taurus?
Yes, they did. No, the Ford Taurus was donated to the fire department. They practiced on that. And then it actually then goes to scrapyard and we still get $600 for it, believe it or not. So
600 is what you got on a scrap?
yeah, scrapyard.
Good.
Correct.
That's better than I did on.
Yeah.
Yes, more power to you.
We're working hard.
Yeah.
Any other comment? Public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you. The next two items kind of go hand in hand. They deal with the police department renovations downstairs. The first item is the one and only change order number 1 for the police department renovations to S.J. Thomas in the amount of $7,024.87. I'm not sure if the board remembers or not, but during award, Chief did ask for about a $5,000 buffer. Unfortunately, when demolition work took place, the HVAC ductwork was actually falling out of the ceiling and disconnected. So we had to spend some funds to get that re-put back up, along with an additional wall needed some additional insulation for some sound privacy between that and the other portions of the building. So that change order with all work is $7,024.87.
I hear a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor McCartney to approve the change order. Any comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you. And then the final item I have is the consideration of pay app number 2, which is the final for the police department renovations to S.J. Thomas in the amount of $5,728.16. That is the final payment, including the above change order we just referenced, and all work has been completed. The space is actually being utilized by the detectives. They're down there utilizing it now. So it'll be the final pay app.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor McCartney. Excuse me. Seconded by Supervisor Grenier to approve pay application number 2, the final pay application for the renovations in the amount of $5,728.16. Any comments?
My usual, what I usually ask,
Yeah.
Chief, did they do everything they're supposed to?
Yeah, no, everything's good. I think the detectives like it. Everything seems to be great for those guys. Yeah.
Most of all, Derek did a great job, supervised it, the work. Everything's fine.
Did back and say,
Yeah.
So this is it. Everything's done, including the bathrooms down the.
Done, bathrooms down there. Yeah. Tax office has access to the bathroom. Yep. Everything's great.
how are we on budget?
If you recall, like I said prior, when we did award, I believe the award amount was, again, rough numbers, was $211,000 with a $5,000 buffer. So that would have been $216,000 and change, and we came in at $218,999. So we were just about there. And again, most of the stuff, unfortunately, was more building related, believe it or not, building infrastructure. Like the ductwork, no one would have known that was
Old building, you don't know until you open the walls. Right.
correct. Yeah.
In there.
Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
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 Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, supervisors.
Go to item 11, managers report. Mr. Gratzer.
So members of the board, the first item for discussion and consideration relates to the remaining sanitary sewer sale proceeds and consideration of depositing those into the Lower Makefield Township Trust. Just for way of background, as the board and members of the public may be aware, there was an initial transfer of sale proceeds authorized back in February of 2023. There was an initial deposit of $10 million into the trust. At that time, we had about $22.5 million that was remaining from the sanitary sewer sale after payment of the expenses related to the transaction, payoff of the related sanitary sewer debt, and then the decision to pay off the golf course debt. To date, this money that again remains in Penn Community Bank has yielded about $202,000 of interest. And there is a planned budgeted interfund transfer, part of which was the Heacock playground project that we just saw. But there was a total authorized transfer of $1,245,933 in the adopted 2023 budget. We're expecting interest earnings throughout the year because again, we've been aggressive with the bank, obviously with the interest rate market. We would generate roughly about another $280,000 of interest over the course of the year. So we're expecting at the end of the year, there would be about $11,794,000 in remaining sanitary sewer sale proceeds, contemplating the expected interest in the remainder of 2023. And so at the time of the initial contribution, there was some discussion about the amount of the initial contribution. Again, the initial amount was decided to be $10 million, but there was some discussion at that point about consideration of an additional deposit or an additional contribution into the trust. And so just bringing this matter back for the board's discussion and consideration.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a
Second. Second.
Motion made by Supervisor McCartney, seconded by Supervisor Blondie to place the remaining unearmarked funds from the sewer sale proceeds into the trust. Any comments, questions by the board?
Yeah, I don't think we're at the spot where we can make that suggestion credibly. And the reason why I say that is that the structure of the trust is so restrictive that if we were to need any of the money from that, it would be next to impossible or nearly impossible to do that. When we talked about the trust, I was preferring something a little bit more flexible that you could borrow against it. But very difficult, and not as flexible. And my concern is we still have not really mapped out core capital and infrastructure needs for the upcoming year. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed if after we did that process, I would be open to whatever we thought of was appropriate as the remainder could go in there. Additionally, it seems like we're yielding, what, 4.8% from Penn Community Bank?
I think it's a little bit less than that, but it's in
Okay.
excess of 4, yeah.
So we're getting a decent rate of return on that. So it's not like it's in, a sterile DDA account. And so as a consequence, the question is the value for the township is, do we think we can make a lot more money if it's in the fund and it's invested in roughly the S&P 500 and some other stuff? That's possible. But if we needed to get some of that money in the future, it would be very difficult to do that. So from that perspective, my suggestion would be to table this discussion until we have a better sense of, what we think our infrastructure needs are in the coming years and a better plan for that. But or alternatively, if board members are willing to think through elements of the trust again, I'm open to that. But absent that, I don't know that this is the right time. And I could be entirely, like I said, in a couple months after we've gone through the budget process, after we reviewed this, it might be a different approach, and we might say, yeah, put the rest in, we're in good shape. But I just don't think right now we have enough knowledge to make an informed decision. There was nothing in our packets to illustrate the total amount and the trade-offs. So I think there just needs to be some more research on this before.
Did you make a motion to table?
I will make a motion to table if that's the case. I motion to table.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion to table and a second. Motion to table by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Grenier, any discussion? No, there's no.
There's no
Okay.
discussion.
All those in favor of the tabling signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
Nay.
Nays
Nay.
have it. Tabling is off the table. We have a motion in the second. to
Yeah, we're still
continue.
live, right?
Yeah, I'm going to put my 2 cents in. I'm not in disagreement with what you have to say, Mr. Lewis. However, we have right now, we have a healthy general budget fund, general balance fund of over $4 million, thanks to the $3 million deposit, which was earmarked for the general fund balance. And we have a large amount of money that needs to be used for projects, capital investment in the bond fund, well over $4 million. Plus, we have a significant portion in sewer fund money, which is not sewer proceed money. It's money we've collected when we own the sewers that will probably take care of anything that we need to take care of as far as capital projects. From the conversations that we've had this year, I worry that what's not in the trust will be lost over time. And I would think it would be a very poor decision on the part of this board to expose that money that we monetized a township asset to do certain things. All those things have been done. That money is now that money that's not in the trust is at exposure, that if a future board decides to spend it on operation and maintenance of the township, that money will be lost forever. And as a member of this board, as a member who has lived through the last 6 years, getting to this point of basic financial health, and this is a snapshot at this point, I would hate to see the tide shift over time and lose that money that belongs to the township and is basically the asset, the final asset of that sewer system that we used to own. Every penny of it, the more I think about it, should be dedicated to relieving the tax burden. It's the reason why the trust was made in the first place, of the public as far as possible, and as much as possible. So knowing that we may put that money at risk in the future would lead me to support placing the rest of the money into the sewer fund, sewer trust, or the township trust. And knowing that we have literally millions of dollars that has been laying dormant for projects that should have been paid for years ago, but we couldn't risk it because of our poor financial condition back in the past. Now we know how much money is there. We are getting the idea of how much money we're going to need in the near future to pay for capital projects. We're developing better revenue streams. The golf course is bringing in almost $1 million now every year. The sewer fund, if it's invested right, will bring in maybe another $1 million every year, maybe more. Having that source of income, that revenue stream for years and years to come, I would like to see that money protected today, not worry about it months from now when we're embroiled in how much money we need to spend. Because knowing where we are and knowing the thoughts of this board, I would rather see that money protected, because there's other ways to get money if we need it for large capital projects. That's my thought, but I'm just one guy. Mr. Renner.
I don't know that I disagree with 95% of what you said, and you've heard me talk about this for the last couple of years, right? About protecting the value of basically the funds that we have. And so it's not spent on one or two big projects, et cetera. So we can be responsible with it long term. You know,
My fear that it's going to be spent on the light bill.
Well, here's, I don't mean to be, my response to that is if we have to spend it on light bill, then we have bigger problems than that, you know what I mean? But I hear what you're saying. So my main concern, I'm not sure it's the same as what Supervisor Lewis was saying, but it's maybe along the same lines, is that we know, last meeting, we looked at the PRP, right, pollution reduction plan, and we're looking at $1.5 million or so per year just to do a couple of projects to be in compliance with that permit, right? We know stormwater sewer and other infrastructure is going to cost more than that over the next several years. It's just the nature of having infrastructure, right? We know there was some discussion early on about a quote unquote structural deficit of a couple $1 million. We have to address that, right? We know there's Patterson Farm coming up. That's not going to be cheap. We have to address that. There's other stuff, roadways. Maybe we want to do more of the other stuff we want to do. And I'm not saying spend the money on that now. What I'm saying is we have a little less than 6 months in this year, from a meeting standpoint, we have less than that because we don't end on December 31st. I hear what you're saying there. Well, the reason why I voted in favor of tabling wasn't because I'm against putting the balance in the fund as it were. It's more that, as I've been saying a lot, is that before we do that, I think it would be wise to sit down, have our manager present to us the full gamut of where we are, what we need to do, what our issues are, what we have. And these are things, some of the stuff that you mentioned in your initial comments when you took over as chair this year, that all that stuff that we have, that discussion, I think as we reference it, right, is what I would like to have before we take that next step to say, hey, you know what, there's X number of dollars left. After we do all that, let's put that in the trust. And hopefully it's a big number so that then, like you said, that can kick back more money to the township in future years. I don't think we can touch it for 2-3 years.
More years.
Right?
Yeah, so just as for informational purposes, distribution is restricted essentially through 2024. So a distribution could be made on or after January 1st of 2025. Same with withdrawals, but again, as you're aware, in order to withdraw, it requires a vote of at least 4 members of the board, or a determination that the township is financially distressed under Act 47. And then as it relates to loans, as was referenced, it also is restricted to that same period. So January 1st of 2025. So for the entirety of 2024, it would be restricted.
So we could have restrictions these next couple of years. I'm not saying remove any money. What I'm saying is that interest that we'd be allowed to use to put towards the budget, we're not allowed to touch that for a couple of years. So the next few years could be difficult depending on what projects we have to come up that may be somewhat of an emergency. So I don't know, Mr. Kratt, do you have a recommendation from your perspective on how we should approach this?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's the decision of the board, and I don't mean to shirk my responsibility. To be sure, placing it in the trust mechanism does create restriction in terms of use. That being said, the argument in terms of making sure that it's protected or invested in a way that generates long-term return as opposed to using it for operational related expenses, I also think that that's prudent as well. So again, ultimately, I think it's something that you'll have to decide as to whether it makes sense now or later. There are things that again, we could have a clearer picture on, but there are cash balances, as the chair has noted as well, that do provide some flexibility in those circumstances.
I want to bring up one of those because I'm unclear as to what it's set aside for. And I'm talking about the sewer monies that are still around. No, I'm not talking about the sewer sale.
No. Yeah, and there's a question.
Yeah.
Sewer fund. Money that we have left over from owning the sewers is significant. We owe Morrisville
That's why I wanted to.
a bit of it.
Right.
And because we may get into litigation, I don't want to get into the details. But even so, the remaining sewer fund money, plus our, maybe the $1 million in the fund balance that we can play with, because we want a healthy, vibrant credit rating when Moody's decides to reevaluate us. Plus our bond fund that's been sitting there for the last 10 years, doing nothing, can't even get interest, a rate of interest that would help. So it's basically stagnant. It hasn't even kept up with inflation. So we've lost money on the bond fund. So if anything's going to be done with Patterson Farm, that's going to be used first. I mean, it would be stupid of us not to.
No, like I said, I don't.
And
I don't.
and as for discussion purposes, we have if you study what needs to be done, it's capital projects, what we have, and that's Play for All and Patterson, those two big projects.
Well, I honestly, not to interrupt you, but I think the stormwater and roads may.
Roads
Yeah.
would be a poor choice to use sewer proceeds.
I'm just saying overall.
I'm just saying sewer proceeds would be used for reinvesting permanently in the township, not for every 10 or 15 years to pave another road. That would be like paying the light bill to me. That would be like paying for more employees to mow the lawn. Reinvesting in the township would be buying more land, creating a park, or developing a revenue stream that we keep taxes rising as great as they would if we didn't have them. So, I truly believe that protecting this money at this point is the best way to go. And yes, it will influence our budget discussions in the fall. And that's exactly what we should be doing. We should be having a real discussion on how we pay for sustainability in the coming years and not risk our now look at that pot of money sitting at Penn Community at 4.5%, saying, oh yeah, we can use that money. That's, to me, would be a poor fiduciary position.
I'll just say that what I'm concerned about, we set up some sort of block on us where we have a lot of money that we can't touch. And then we get into a situation almost immediately, perhaps, potentially, where we're short of money and then we have to immediately, the only thing we can do is put in an EIT or something like that. And I don't want to be forced into doing that because we have all this money locked up.
If we have to use sewer fund proceeds to pay the bills, we're not being true fiduciaries to the township. That's my strong opinion. The public expects us to be better stewards of our assets. We sold an asset. That should be with the township forever. The money is in a permanent trust. 10 million of it is now. Looking at the future, looking at my crystal ball, and with the money that we have that we can spend on projects, the projects that are in the pipeline or being thought of being in the pipeline, we have that money. And we should use that money for those projects. We can use a portion of the sewer money, sewer fund money, not sewer proceeds money. I know it can be confusing to pave a couple miles of road, but we also have debt millage that's going to be coming due in the next year that we can take out an additional road loan like we have now to put in another 2 miles of road forever, to increase. So we've already put in place processes that'll keep us going. But the thing is, and that's Mr. Cratchit's responsibility when budget time comes to tell us what's going to be sustainable. And do we spread away money that we fought for so much to get us to this point? We want to fritter that away, so we're going to end up in 2018 terms. We had to take an anticipatory note to pay the salaries of our staff in the beginning of 2018 because we were basically broke. I don't want to get there. I don't want to end up in a place where the township will be at a zero fund balance the next year if we keep doing what we're doing. No, we bought some time, but I really feel that the money that I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but now as I'm getting to realize what it's going to cost to fix Patterson, what we're going to have to do at Makefield, what we may or may not do at Snipes, we have other funds that we can deal with that will be more than adequately take care of what we need to do for a bond issue.
I guess the only thing I'm saying, and I'll leave it at this, is you mentioned some big ticket items, some big concerns that are still being studied. They haven't been completed. Kind of see where they might be going, but we haven't had the presentations yet, and things may, who knows what changes along the way, but they're moving. And those processes are going to impact other things. Because they're big ticket items, big issues in the township. My only ask, and I probably won't get it, but I'll ask, is that we go through the Patterson process, which is we're having the public meeting there in a couple of days. We've finished up the Makefield process, see what comes out of that, and then we have our township manager and staff work together to paint a picture for us, so that then they can advise us as to potential paths forward that ultimately would lead to the financial stability that we're all trying to push for. That's all. And hopefully, and I would absolutely want to do that by the fall, so that it's before we vote on a budget, we have that understood and push that forward. That's my only.
I get it. I just think we can do that and still protect the money. I know we can.
I just haven't seen the line item that shows me the money, as they say.
But I'm not saying we're going to do this. I'm just saying that, and just Makefield, I'm not sure what Makefield is going to cost as far as Patterson Farm is concerned. And this is only a hypothetical thing. So Donna, if you're listening to me, don't take this as gospel. We can knock every building down, rebuild it, and still have the money, not considering sewer. Just saying.
I know you didn't want to say it that way.
We can duplicate that way, but I'm only saying that the money is there if we needed it, if we were going to go in that direction. It has nothing to do with reality. I'm just saying that it could be. So Donna, forgive me. Don't yell at me. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I said, if God forbid it to happen, we could rebuild everything duplicated. We can do it with sewer fund and the bond fund, and still have money left over for some of Snipes, but we may have to borrow soon. The thing is that sewer proceed money should not be touched unless you want to use it for a real project like Snipes or Makefield or Patterson, not for roads, not for paying the light bill, not for salaries of staff, because then you're going, it ends up going away. You can't. We did that before. And this is what we ended up.
Yeah,
I can't in good conscience. It keeps me up at nights now.
Yeah, no,
That's all. That just keeps me up at night.
I think like I said, I think for the most part, we're talking the same language. It's just
I know.
timing and
I think the timing is right. I think the timing is right. Because we're going to start talking about the budget soon, sooner than later. We're going to have those workshops. We're going to have all those things that you were talking about, because now we can actually have a conversation on where we're going to go to be sustainable. Any other comments by the board? Any public comment?
I think James has his.
Oh, go ahead, James.
Just a quick question for Dave, and I just want to reiterate, because it's the conversation that I had earlier. So the money that we're pledging to put into the trust, ideally, if it's on the table, come hard times, we can tap into that money for operational costs. Is that correct?
You would have the ability to do that again with the parameters in terms of the restriction on distribution, restriction on withdrawal, and also the loan. So again, at a minimum, it would be restricted through 2024.
Okay.
But then beyond that, you would, to the extent that the value is beyond the amount of the initial contribution, which was 10 million, you would have the ability to take that money out. Yes.
And if it was left in the high yield money market that it's currently in, we could tap into it for any type of operational use tomorrow, theoretically.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. If there's an emergency that comes up between now and the end of 2024, you're comfortable that there's other funds, whether it's bond fund or some other balance somewhere within the budget that it would adequately meet any needs that we have, come an emergency situation, correct?
During that period of restriction, you're saying?
Yes.
I would think that yes, I mean, again, I can't contemplate everything.
Sure.
But there's likely and again, I know you don't have this at this point in front of you, but from a general fund perspective, I'm looking at a sheet here that has a balance in the general fund of a little bit over 3.6, almost $3.7 million in the what is titled the Series 2016 Bond Fund. There's the initial $3 million deposit that was put in there for the sanitary sale. So in theory, that money, I think, has already been authorized to be transferred to the general fund. For whatever reason it wasn't. I think it was not transferred to the general fund because they were trying to generate additional yield. And at that time, the sewer proceeds fund had the highest interest rate from Penn Community Bank. And then there is an additional $2 million on top of that, which was when you essentially sold your interest in the cell tower lease as well. So there's probably $5 million there in addition to the 3.6. And then there is, as the chair had noted, there's considerable sums of money. There's almost $10 million in the sewer fund being shown on the sheet that I'm looking at. Again, some of that will have to go towards settlement that was referenced. And then there are some miscellaneous projects, but there should be a fair amount of balance in that fund as well that could be transitioned over.
So conservatively, and I'm going to use a very low number, so about 10 million at worst case scenario worth of, oh my God, we have an emergency in 2024 that we need to take care of. If we had to tap into any of that money for a project or anything major that we needed to take care of. And again, I'm not referring to operational costs because I think that we agree that it would be inappropriate to use any of that bond money towards operational costs, correct?
I think your estimate's probably fair. Yeah.
Okay. So I think, and to reiterate what Dan said, at some point, we're going to have very tough conversations about how we come up with a budget that allows us to operationally run at break even rather than at a deficit. And I think leaving the sewer sale money out in any fund balance, and I'm not saying this board would do it or future boards would do it, but it gives the opportunity to a future board to tap into that money to run the operations. And I think that's what Chairman Weiss, I think in so many words, that's what Mr. Grenier was saying as well. And if I remember correctly, I think, Dan, one of the things you wanted to do when we first went down the road of a trust was to put the entire amount into the trust. So I think that you may have been closer to right originally, but I think it does.
I was closer to right, you said?
No, he said
Closer to
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Dan,
Did I say that though?
You're both right.
What, pardon me?
You were both
I
right.
just wanted to make sure he said me. That's all. I'm teasing, James. Thank you.
I remember Dan saying it, John. I vaguely remember you saying
Jesus.
somewhere, but yes. So no, I think that it's that's the good thing about having a collective board of intellects. Sometimes we can admit that, hindsight's 20/20. So I think that it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do it, the right time to do it. And I think that, I think we're going to have to be creative come budget time, but it forces us to be creative. I think if that money's sitting out there, then we tend to be a little bit lazy with how we're going to create a budget that's firm and balanced. But that's all I had.
I have nothing original to add to the discussion. I didn't arrive here lightly. I didn't arrive at my vote to sell the sewer lightly. The ways we've used some of those proceeds to pay down debt so that we're in a better position, those are steps I'm proud that we've taken. And I think we need to take this step now.
My only question, this he's pouring himself water. I'm going to make him choke on it.
Yeah.
I don't know, January, February, whatever it was, there was some mention of some level of a structural deficit that we had to address. I heard sort of a nicer picture in terms of the 3.6, the 5 and the $10 million, different funds, which is a little different than what I thought I was hearing earlier in the year about a 1.5 to 2.5. I'll use a wider range because whatever that number was from a structural deficit perspective, that was concerning to everyone at the time, which is why a big part of the reason why we only went with 10. So I just want to understand. That's what I'm trying to figure, because personally, I don't feel like I've seen the plan, the picture, whatever you want to, the summary, that says we made that jump. That
the cash on hand is one thing. We're still bleeding, but we have a cash balance. That cash balance will disappear in a couple of years if we don't address that structural deficit. We've addressed it partially by going to Pliget, getting better interest rates on our money. We've reduced our health costs by going to the co-op, the state co-op. We've basically made up $500,000 there. There might be other economies that our manager can find for us between now and budget time. But if we're at a $2 million deficit and we just pick up 600,000, we're still 1.X number, $1.2, $1.3 million behind, which means we lose our healthy fund balance. We have to tap into sewer funds that aren't being spent on projects, so over time we'll find ourselves in the same place we were in 2017.
My only request over the next few months, like I said, I still think we should hold off. I generally interested in the concept, but over the next few months, I would just like to get a really good picture of what arrows we have in our quiver to address the budget. And
I've been working with the manager, getting that, and unfortunately, with all the other stuff going on, but as we get closer to budget time, it'll be more. So hopefully we will have those numbers.
Yeah, I
very shortly.
haven't seen it. That's what I want to know.
Yeah. So I know Mr. Kratzer has that on the mind and how we're going to address all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to close the conversation because I think we've exhausted this. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. First, I'd like to talk just quickly about the process here. There was no background material for us to assess this decision. And typically, we've had this now for a recurring period of time where decisions are asked for without supporting documentation. This discussion that we don't exactly know what our structural deficit is troubling, because board members should know exactly at the tip of their tongue what they think this budget stands are. And hold on, please. And we should have given this some thought. And so now I don't believe this is an irreversible decision, because that trust can be voided. It can be 4 people can vote to change. And I'm appreciative of being right last year. So I've got that going for me. You too, Supervisor Grenier, you got that going for you.
One every now and again.
Huh?
Get one every now and again.
Every now and again. But in general, I don't see the rush for this. It's something that could have been done after some more contemplative thought. And this is one of those things where I just, God, it's killing me. You don't understand just how horrifically bad the sewer decision was. And the fact that still, we're somehow sugarcoating that. Wait till that first bill comes, when the first PUC approval comes in for the rate increase. You know that we didn't even take the best bid. And for us for some to argue that this is somehow a great decision or anything like that, oh gosh, no. And history will not look kindly on any of this. So I'm very frustrated, and I'm just going to let this go. One of the things that, in general, it's difficult to communicate complex stuff for folks. When a decision gets made, there are all these sort of ancillary things. Last year, Supervisor Grenier and I repeatedly said, well, wait, why don't we have a plan for what we want to do with the money? And yet we kept getting asked for, oh, here's $500,000 here, $500,000 there. What was the strategy? And that's precisely what you're now trying to guard against what was done just last year. So on the one hand, I guess I'm okay with this. It's not the end of the world, but gosh, this is just not the right way to do business. It's not the right way to communicate these things for folks. It also doesn't help our case at all in general with the rating agencies. We don't look good with these decisions. The rating agencies know essentially what we've done, and they haven't upgraded us or anything. So those are all baked in decisions. My frustration is, gosh, we're just not making good decisions as a collective unit. And I would think the better way to do this is for us to contemplate and have a larger plan or discussion. And I'm hopeful that we'll have that in the fall, but this isn't it. And
Gotcha. All I can say is that thank God that we sold the sewers when we did, or else we'd probably be in insolvency by now. But
that's actually true.
You can disagree, and you have, and we've heard that side numerous times. But the fact is, no matter what the rate will be in 2025, because that's when the rate will actually increase, which will mean there has been no sewer increases since 2019, which will be 6 years, with an inflation rate over the last 6 years, we'll just say 30-35%. So if rates go up 38-40%, really, we're talking maybe a 3 or 4% over inflation rate increase. That's not that bad, considering our friends in the borough pay even higher than we do. And they still have their sewers. But that's not, the fact is, if we didn't sell our sewers, I have no problem relitigating this again and again. We'd have no fund balance right now. It'd be zero. We would have trouble paying our salaries because our debt, we'd be renewing debt on other things. I mean, there's a whole bunch that has nothing to do with actually protecting the rest of the sewer money. But I'll go there. This township is much stronger in a much better position today than if we not sold the sewers. Fact. Rates. All we can go on was the indicative rates that PFM gave to us when we were doing it. We got the best deal, not necessarily the highest deal, but we got the best deal. As far as the majority of the members present voted at the time. And conclusion was $53 million, $3 million going to our fund balance, X number of $1 million to pay off the golf course. The rest, we know where it went. On the transparent way, heard pro and con. We heard your comments many times, but it's still, we have $20-some million from sewer proceeds. 10 has already been put in. You wanted to put the rest in back in February. We said we might want to hold it, but over time, as clouds begin to clear, this is the time to put the rest in protection.
Respectfully, what I did say last year was, yeah, I would have no problem putting the full amount in if we had a more flexible way of accessing it.
Well,
And that got
to
closed.
tell you the truth, I'm glad that we don't, because we've heard your comments in the past on sustainability and how to make our township more sustainable over time. I disagree. I disagree strongly with your whole plan for the township. The township, if your views are the majority in the coming years, I worry for the township.
So
It's one of my reasons why I think it's a good idea to protect the money right now. I worry, having a good, significant income stream that will help the taxpayers in the future is much more preferable to exposing that money to be lost by paying operation and maintenance costs. Pure and simple. If the majority of the board disagrees, it won't happen. If a majority agrees, it will happen. You'll need a supermajority to take the money and waste it away, if that's what you want to do in the future. But as long as I'm on this board, I can't see that happening. I can't.
okay.
There's nothing more, I mean, you disagree?
Pardon.
I agree.
Pardon.
Is there anything new you want to add?
Yeah, very quickly. When a person resorts to ad hominem attacks about somebody.
I'm sorry, I didn't say you were a terrible person. I said your idea was terrible. Just like you told me my idea on selling the sewers was the most horrific thing this township ever did. That's not an ad hominem attack. That's an attack on my idea. I have no problem with that. I shouldn't think that you would have a problem telling me that the idea that you have when wasting away up to $10 million of this township's precious sewer proceeds would be horrific as well. So please.
You're making factual statements.
You happen to be a nice guy. I like you, but I don't like your ideas. So stop saying that people are giving you ad hominem attacks. That's not true. Your idea is ridiculous. Wasting money, hard-fought money that belongs to the township, that is a township asset. In fact, I'm using the same words you used about selling the sewers. Now I'm saying that the money that obtained by selling the sewers should be protected and used to benefit the taxpayers for decades to come. All of the money, if you want to leave the interest out that we've accumulated, we can do that. That's not really the sewer proceeds. That's income based on the money that we got so far. That's fine. But stop talking about ad hominem attacks. Nobody cares if you're good or bad. We're just talking about your ideas for the township. We've heard your ideas. I'm going to cut off discussion. I'm going to ask the public to comment if there's any public comment. And if there's no public comment, we'll take a vote. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment online? Hearing none, I call the question.
There's no public comment online.
Nothing online? Okay, thank you.
Well, no, did you say there was nothing online or is there someone online?
There was no one online.
One online.
Okay.
Okay. So, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of depositing the remaining proceeds of the sewer sale into the trust, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Opposed.
Uh,
Ayes have it, 3-0. Thank
how
you.
much is the amount was in the motion?
Dave, I believe the balance was 12 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do need to account, I mean, there was interfund transfers that were already allocated.
Okay, it's the net transfer.
So it would be net of the budgeted transfers. The budgeted transfers are 1,245,933, none of which has been transferred at this point out of the current balance. So we would have to net that out.
That's representative of all those park and rec projects, right? The 1,245.
Correct. That was the only allocated transfer, budget transfer related to park.
Money we earmarked for the master plan, the
Veterans.
studies.
Veterans and Patterson.
No, yeah.
Veterans.
And this is not to labor it, but timing would be immediate, I assume, or after these transfers clear, whatever it is.
Whenever we do a counting of the earmarks again, and the difference, and the interest earned can stay, that's the net proceed, that's the actual sewer proceed.
Yeah.
The income can stay we can play whatever we want then.
And that doesn't restart any clocks or anything?
No, no. And we said that was an initial, that $10 million was just an initial deposit.
Oh, yeah, no,
We were planning more. Okay,
not arguing. I just.
no, I appreciate that. Okay. Item, B.
So item B, this was a topic of discussion at a prior meeting. There was actually an error in the ordinance that was advertised. So we're suggesting that be withdrawn from the agenda and there be authorization to re-advertise the ordinance with the proper provisions as it relates to the parking restriction. Chief, I don't know if you want to say anything on this. I know you were.
I don't, just that needs to be re-advertised with the correction in it, that's all.
So the prohibition was noted as one side of the street, and there was inconsistency in the I guess the recommendation that came forth. It referenced on the side that there was no fire hydrants, but the actual ordinance had referenced the side of the ordinance or the side of the street that has the fire hydrants. So we need to withdraw that and go through that process again.
You need a motion.
So maybe just a motion to re-advertise the ordinance with the amended ordinance with proper restriction.
Motion to re-advertise the ordinance to amended ordinance to enter into an intergovernmental agreement. Oops.
That's the one before it.
To amend chapter 190 vehicles and traffic, section 3 parking prohibited at all times in certain locations to establish parking relations with respect to Wildflower Circle. It made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Ayes have it 5-0.
So the next item is consider approval of an ordinance to enter into into an intergovernmental agreement for purposes of joining the Pennsylvania Municipal Health Insurance Cooperative and to participate as a member of PMIC. As was referenced previously, we're looking at changing how we're procuring insurance. We're currently in the fully insured market through independence. This would result in a transition to a self-insured trust. Independence Blue Cross still being the network in which employees access the respective bargaining units to the extent that there's provisions in their contracts have reviewed and consented to this change. This change in how we're procuring insurance will result in a savings of expected savings of $572,337. So a reduction in excess of 21%. So we would recommend adoption of the ordinance so that we can begin as a member of PMIC on July 1st, 2023.
Moved.
Do I hear a second? Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis to approve the ordinance to enter an intergovernmental agreement joining PMIC and to participate as a member. Any comments about the board? Save some money. Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0.
The next item, Jim, if you wouldn't mind coming up, it's consideration regarding advertisement of an ordinance to amend the Lower Makefield Township subdivision land development ordinance relating to open space requirements.
Good evening. You may recall that the Board of Supervisors authorized advertisement of zoning amendment up during the discussions of the zoning amendments was that we probably needed to have some subdivision and land development amendments to go along with that, just to make sure that there was consistency between the two in certain definitions. Another item that was also brought up was the nature of open space and how that was going to be managed and controlled, accessed, and stuff like that. So an amendment was drafted by Barbara Kirk from Hill Wallach and Dan McClune from our office. And together they came up with what had been discussed at the Planning Commission and various other boards and committees. And they drafted the ordinance, submitted to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission recommended that the Board of Supervisors proceed with the ordinance, subject to making a couple of minor revisions, which were made. And that is what you have before you tonight for consideration to authorize advertisement.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor McCartney to advertise the ordinance to amend the Lower Makefield Township saldo relating to open space requirements. Any discussion? Ryan?
Thank you. You mentioned that the planning commission recommended approval, and then you said other boards and committees had reviewed it. Which other boards and committees have reviewed it?
Well, they haven't reviewed this exact ordinance. This ordinance was generated by the Planning Commission at the request of the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. So now it's going to go to the Board of Supervisors for authorization to advertise it, and then it'll be forwarded to all boards and committees for their comments.
So if we, this is always, I always have an issue with process when it comes to advertising something before it's been through all of our boards and commissions to review, because then we got to pay to re-advertise it if they change anything. That's my nitpicky thing. Generally, I like, obviously we wanted this updated plan, gave some good thought to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and we started this back last year when I was the liaison on the planning commission. So provided comments back then too, as we were reviewing the ordinance that we recently updated there related to that.
I think this was more prompted by the county planning commission in getting our definitions standard through both saldo and zoning.
Yeah.
So it's basically a hand in glove type of thing.
Yeah. Our planning commission was saying, hey, we got all these different, and that's what happens with ordinance sometimes.
Yeah, and there were minor changes in the some of the definitions, and there were some things that were brought up. Well, you know, what does the open space, what will it look like? How will it be managed? Will it be managed as forest lands, grasslands, parklands? Who has access to it? And that should all be spelled out as part of the subdivision land development process so that everyone knows what we're getting.
Yeah, no, that's important. I would lean towards voting against advertising, if only to allow like the EAC is going to have a lot of thoughts on this. I know they will, because they hadn't seen it yet, and I showed it to them, and they said, "Oh, we have some thoughts on this." So they're going to have some recommendations. I would assume, since it's open space, that the Park and Rec Board will have some recommendations, because they are a big part of open space. So those are the two groups, and I'm sure others will too. Now you have me thinking about Disability Advisory Board, because open space needs to be accessible. So there's good effort here, obviously. My personal preference would be to have those other groups take a look, see what they can add, tweak, make it that much better than what it is already. Yeah, and that's that. Now when I look at the other thing that I think is very important that we have in there, and you just mentioned it, is that as part of, especially when we get into larger parcels and developments where we have larger areas of open space after this new ordinance goes into effect, when we have these 25% or whatever large chunks of property, you know, we're looking at 20 plus acres sometimes, right? Is to have a management plan for that open space up front, spelled out, so that there's no question how that open space is going to be managed. I think that's incredibly important. I'm glad that's in here, because oftentimes with developments, anywhere you go, not necessarily Lower Makefield, if you don't have if you don't make the developer do it up front, once they sell everything, they're out of here, and that gets lost, and you learn about it 20 years later when you're going through paperwork. So I'm glad that's in there. When I look at when open space or common open, those types of that type of language is defined, it's always interesting to me that it's often defined by what it is, right? In the definitions, it doesn't include this. Definitions always say it doesn't include stormwater management, it doesn't include sidewalks, it doesn't include grass strips, you know, it doesn't include. We need to do that, because developers would try and take try and draw little polygons on every strip of grass and say that's open space. So I understand that. But two things that I would, one almost fundamental thing to the definition of open space that there's been a lot of talk about these last several years is whether, and I don't see it in here specifically, so is whether if a developer puts in like a swimming pool and a tennis court and a basketball court as part of their plan, are we somehow considering that open space, even though it's all impervious area, limited usage, and all that? So my very strong preference for defining open space would be similar to removing stormwater management and parking lots and all that stuff that are in this proposed ordinance. Okay, would be to remove I don't know I don't want to say active recreational lands, but developed recreational lands from the definition of open space and give it its own definition and its own consideration within the code as we move forward. Because it's not, I'm talking to folks, I think most people think of open space, even if it's active open spaces, more walking trails and wooded areas and maybe some parkland type areas, but not improved with lots of concrete or swimming pools or other things that have to be maintained in a very different way. And then ultimately, because we put those things down, we have to do more stormwater management associated with open space. So that's something I would like to see addressed differently. And then to me, I'd like to figure out a good way to do this. But in the definition of open space, it says it can include resource protected lands. And for us in Lower Makefield, that's a defined term where we have resource protected lands that are wetlands and their buffers, streams and their buffers, woodlands and their setbacks and things of that, and steep slopes, I believe, maybe a few other things that I might be forgetting. And those are included in the definition of what can be open space. My preference would be, because they're resource protected lands, they have to be resource protected. They have to be protected. And if we include those as open space that can be accessed, what I don't want to have happen is for people to access those areas and have a negative impact on those areas. So traipsing through steep slopes and causing erosion, or doing any, I would like to see, and I think maybe the other ordinance addressed this, talked about this or contemplated this, I guess is the right word. But I would like to see resource protected lands handled differently than regular open. I don't know if I should say regular open space in here. So those are, because I want to make sure it's protected, and I want to make sure we get additional open space to resource protected lands wherever we can. I know there's questions about that, but that's something I would like legal to chime in on, maybe not today, but in the future, just look into that, see what our options are, and then look at how we adjust that definition versus the more passive versus active versus developed open spaces, I'll call it. And then just finally to reiterate, before we publish this or advertise this, I would love to get comments from a couple. The three that I mentioned, there's probably others from advisory boards, because I think they'll all have really, really good input that can make this even better. So that's my 2 cents.
Any other comment? Any public comment? There are none. I'll call the question. All those in favor of advertising the ordinance to amend the Saldo relating to open space, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Opposed.
Motion passes 3-0. 3-2, I'm sorry.
And because it's advertised, it'll come back before us for final adoption. We can have this discussion. So now it's going to go to all these boards. So it's essentially, we'll still go through the process. We just may have to advertise again.
We have to make major amendments, or we advertise it again as amended. Exactly. Item 12, solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Initially, just wanted to note that the board did meet in executive session, convened about 6:30 this evening for the purpose of consulting regarding information and strategy in connection with litigation, consideration of potential acquisition of real estate, and discussing employment-related matters. We also have for your consideration tonight a resolution regarding an ordinance that you adopted back in April of this year to vacate Oxford Valley Road. Ordinance number 437 had two different exhibits attached to it, a legal description and a plan. After adoption of the ordinance, those exhibits were corrected. And so we're simply looking for a resolution that would allow the substitution of those corrected exhibits A and B to the previously adopted ordinance.
We have a motion?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor. Excuse me. Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis to amend the attachments to the ordinance vacating Old Oxford Valley Road. Any comment? Public comment? Oh, I'm sorry.
So the need for this is a correction to make sure that we did the surveying correctly so that we're providing the exact land to the recipients, right?
Right, it was the meets and bounds legal description of the land, and there was a plan attached to it.
All right, so no problem.
Doesn't change the substance of the ordinance.
Yeah.
Just
Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Marty, are you opposed or are you in favor?
I'm opposed.
Ayes have it 4-1.
Opposed last time. Expect to be opposed in the future.
Item 13.
There are two zoning hearing board appeals. They're scheduled. One is appeal number, you have to forgive me because I left my glasses back at the office. Z23-214, Ed Olenek, for the property 261 Rock Run Road in Yardley. Tax parcel number 20-056-104. And the issue is whether or not the board wish to participate in that. And we believe not. Okay. The second one was appeal number Z23-2016 for the property at 0 Edgewood Road. Tax parcel numbers 20-034-130. Because requesting a series of variances, density, wetlands buffer, setbacks, what have you. On that one, if the board's inclined to have us participate in that.
I'd like to make a motion to have the Board of Supervisors participate in appeal number Z23-2016 for the property located at 0 Edgewood Road, tax parcel number 20-034-130.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor McCartney to participate in the appeal Z23-2016.
Just a quick question. That's a participate, not oppose.
I'm open to
Correct.
discussion. So folks are at home are familiar. The landowner looks like they're asking for, and Mr. Majewski's here, so you can correct me if I misspeak, please, but they're asking for the ability to disturb areas within resource protected areas so that they can build a home on a fairly small lot. Obviously, we have major concerns with that. Zoning Hearing Board has addressed these in the past, but this sort of is an elevated concern because of the nature of resources. I guess my question, Mr. Majewski, is if we did want to consider changing that motion, is what is the knock-on effect if if the Zoning Hearing Board were to deny this because of the variance request? Would the owner still be able to build anything there given our zoning requirements? And if not, what does that mean to us?
Good question.
Got two tonight. I don't.
You're on a roll.
Truly, I am a broken clock. I like it.
Exit
Um,
stage.
There are some outstanding questions on the property and the plan. I know the flood mapping shows the property located within the floodplain. However, the topography that was provided, and even going back to our 1980 aerial topography that the township has in their possession, appears to show that all of the area that they're proposing to do work in is actually above the floodplain. They would need a letter of map amendment to administratively remove that from the floodplain, so therefore there's no disturbance on that. They do have an approximate limit of wetlands on the plan, which I think may be less in their favor than what I think the actual wetlands are. So I think they need to do a little bit more homework to pin down some of the issues on here to determine whether or not we really should participate or oppose. Kind of wishy-washy answer, but
Or they, to your point, because yeah, for me, I kind of jump and say this sounds like an oppose, but immediately, but then we don't want to put ourselves in a predicament where opposing it puts us in any sort of litigation trouble. So I want to understand if, as a wetlands guy, right? Have they, when you talk about they have something on a map, you know, that somebody probably went out and hung some flags and they got a surveyor to go shoot the flags, and that shows what some consultant said was a wetland out there, right? But
no, actually, they just say it's approximate limit of wetlands.
oh, they haven't even done that.
Correct. And based on the property next door and a prior actual delineation, I think the wetlands may not be as extensive as they have, but it really needs to be marked out, delineated, surveyed to determine what's the real setback from resource protected land. It may be that the relief is minimal when they give us a little bit more information.
Yeah. So when are they? So participate. So let me back up, because you're going to tell me this, I think. Participating doesn't necessarily mean that we can't oppose later once we get more information, right?
Correct. I mean, I think one of the main purposes of participation is to flesh out all these points that Mr. Majewski is pointing to.
So when are they on the zoning hearing board calendar?
July 18th.
Soon. Do we think we'll have an answer to those questions by July 18th?
Some, if not all, will be answered. I will reach out to the applicant and their engineer just to advise them of the couple of issues that I see with their plans so they can take appropriate action. They might be able to get stuff in time, maybe not.
Because what would be nice is we have a meeting before then, right? Or are we canceling?
It's the day after,
July 18th? We don't have a meeting before then? Our first
July
meeting?
19th.
You didn't advertise a meeting for July 5th.
Because of the
There was no
Only
canceled
July
meeting. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. I'm not sure I saw that. Okay.
So they can actually open the hearing, present their stuff, and we could always ask for continuance later if need be. Unless they get us all the information before the meeting and it's satisfactory, and then we know what we're dealing with.
And as a participant, we could request a continuance as well. One second.
And we also have
Is that
public
convenient?
status, so we can change our.
Yeah, so anytime between, so we can participate now officially, get the information before the meeting. Depending on what that information says, we could, through our township manager, we could say, hey, we'd rather change our, if the information says that we could change going in, or we have to, hear about it the day after and go.
And Mr. Duffy, correct me if I'm wrong. We participate, the zoning hearing board will make their judgment, pro or con. If we decide that we need to get involved, it's through the courts.
It's just, it sends, you know how it goes. It sends a message participating versus opposing. They know where we're coming from and what to expect. So,
It's your motion, sir.
yeah, I understand. I'm open to opinions. Yeah.
Dan, I prefer to stay participate as the second of the motion.
am I recognized?
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
pick on you.
Okay, so Two things. One, the reason why the board is very particular about wetlands and flood zones is for everyone to understand, we applied for something with FEMA to put us in the CRS. This was, gosh, was it 7, 8 years ago?
Right.
Yeah. What that does is for families who live in the flood zone, they get about a 25% reduction in their flood insurance premiums. And as a consequence, part of that deal with FEMA is that we're vigilant about making sure that we're protecting folks from flood zones. And that's why when we talk about this stuff, we're extra vigilant. And sometimes on the zoning hearing boards, we have often entered in to participate just to make sure things are done right, because we want to protect residents and definitely their insurance premiums, which is why that focus here. I'm okay with participating. It would be nice if we could, the letter, right, that you're suggesting that they would get, what's the process on that letter that would say that they're not in the flood zone for where they're building?
Well, I believe they have enough information right now to prepare the letter of map amendment for FEMA and submit it. I'm not sure what the current processing time frames are on that now. It may be 15 days, it may be 60 days, I'm not sure. But I'm pretty confident that the houses as proposed and the area that would reasonably be needed to enjoy the yard around the houses is higher than the floodplain.
Yeah. Can we make, could the zoning hearing board make approval contingent upon that letter being accepted by FEMA?
Yes.
Okay. And we could suggest that as a participant, right?
Right, and if they don't get the letter of map amendment, then they need to go for another variance for disturbing the floodplain. So they haven't requested that because they're above the floodplain. However, until FEMA removes you from the floodplain administratively through a letter of map amendment, you are in the floodplain.
Okay. So I think Supervisor Grenier, if you're okay, I agree with you again, twice in one day, clock time. But I think we're collectively okay with just participating, or at least I am, given what you're at. And to the applicant, who I don't know, best of luck. Please file the FEMA letter. That would make things easier for you.
Any other comments by the board? Any public comment? Comment online? Not hearing any, I'll call the question. All those in favor of participation, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Mr. Machuski, Community Development.
You have before you an extension of time request for the Torbert Farm subdivision and land development plan until August 1st, 2023 from the developer.
Do I hear a motion?
Like to make a motion to extend the time for the Torbert Farm subdivision and land development plan to the August 1st?
August 1st,
August 1st, 2020.
When's our first meeting in August, though?
actually August 2nd. So it's possible this could be on in July, or if discussions with them are positive, it could be extended another day. I don't see a problem. And we would do that at the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem if we just, what would be the problem of just saying middle of August? I mean, if it's resolved sooner, it's resolved sooner.
It's at the granting of an extension is at their discretion, not ours. It's really, you're acknowledging their extension more so than approving it.
The only reason we're bringing that up really is because we just had to have a special meeting because the attorneys from the same law firm made us have a special meeting in between 2 other meetings so that we could consider their land development plan. So they're not known to be very flexible and follow our meeting schedule. They look to have us advertise additional meetings. So it is what it is, but I'm hoping that they'll reconsider that in this case. But anyway, did we get a second on the motion? I didn't
I think I can second for you if you like, I guess.
We have a motion to approve extension of time for Torbert Farm subdivision land development plan by excuse me, Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
5-0, ayes have it.
Next, we have an extension of time for the 1566 LLC subdivision to August 4th, 2023 for your consideration.
I move that we grant the extension of time for 1566 LOC subdivision to August 4th, 2023, which is after our first meeting in August.
And also President Obama's birthday.
It's what?
Second. Obama's birthday. August 4th.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to our favorite president.
I'll second the motion.
You made the motion.
I made the motion.
We all seconded it.
Yeah, well,
Wherever you go.
Oh, I missed it.
motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by multiple people. We'll give Mr. McCartney the honor of seconding for extending the time for 1566 LLC subdivision for August 4th. Any more comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. C.
The next item is consider award recommendation for the Regency Pedestrian Trail Project to T. Schieffer Contractors, Inc. in the amount of $429,964.00. This is for the project to do pedestrian trail connections along Big Oak Road and Old Oxford Valley Road between the Regency at Yardley on both sides of Big Oak Road. The township received only one bid for the project. However, we determined that the contractor is qualified and everything is in order with their paperwork. The budget that was allocated in 2023 for this project was $600,000. So it came in nicely below the budget. And so therefore we're asking for your consideration to approve it, conditioned on the issuance of a written contractor responsibility determination by the township after the public review period.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis to award recommendation to for the Regency Pedestrian Trail Project to T. Schaefer Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $429,964. Includes the road improvements too. So they can cross Big Oak Road,
Yes.
the whole thing. Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, so this is being funded through the special fund or the Regency Infrastructure Fund, correct?
That is correct.
So for those wondering what the funding source was, the township, before I was even on the board or anybody else, entered in an agreement with the developers for the Regency properties. As part of that, funds were set aside for infrastructure improvements that are related to that area. This is a significant first pull at that. The township worked diligently, I believe, with the Regency community, and they should be relatively happy with the outcome of this in terms of the process that we went through. I know this has been around pre-COVID, so I'm excited to, see this move forward. There's still, that intersection is a challenging one for pedestrians. Of course, obviously, you really can't go east from Regency to, for example, Coles or anything like that. But this at least gets you access to the other parts of Regency. It's a helpful winner for everybody.
Any other comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Ayes have it, 5-0. Item D.
We have two pay applications for the Community Trail Project. Pay application number 10 to Richard E. Pearson Construction Company, Inc. in the amount of $43,838.95.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis to authorize pay application number 10 for the Lower Makefield Community Trail Project. Any comments?
You know what I'm gonna ask? Who did the review of their work? Was that you, Jim, or was that Andy or somebody else?
That was somebody else. PennDOT had hired inspection firm to do the inspection. We've been out there and we're pretty satisfied with all the work that had been done out there.
I always ask that before we give them money.
Doesn't hurt.
Any other comments? Public comment? Yeah, the trail really turned out nice. I'll call the question. All those in favor of pay application 10 to lower to Richard E. Pearson Construction Company, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0.
We also have for your consideration, pay application number 11 to Richard E. Pearson Construction Company, Inc. in the amount of $12,965.60.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis to pay application 11. Comments? Public comment? Call the question. All those in favor of pay application 11, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0. Item F.
And the last item is a certificate of appropriateness for 1790 Yardley Langhorne Road for Barbarino Yardley. This previously had been approved for a sign when it was Trombino Hair Care. They changed the layout of the sign. They went to Harb a couple of times. I'm not sure if the applicant is here available to describe what he'd like to do, but at the Harb meeting, it was the consensus of the board that they'd like the sign to be more of a different shape than what they had proposed. And I know Mr. Trombino, I think, would like to keep the sign as he has presented it to Harb with sort of a rounded top. The Harb had recommended that it sort of be I don't know what kind of shape you'd call it.
I have Mr. Trombino here online.
Okay, let's let him in.
Just hopefully he can describe what he'd like to do.
Mr. Trombino, you're live with the board.
Yes, hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me tonight.
So the final sign design that you submitted to the Harb, if I remember, so I'm the liaison to the Harb, was a rectangular sign, white
Yes, sir.
background with the Barber Pole and Barbarino.
Yes, sir, with a black border.
Right, and that's the final design that you wish to have.
Yes,
Okay. So if I remember, the Harb wanted cutouts on each corner, give it a cup shaped appearance or a scalloped edge corner appearance. From what I understand, that's something you don't wish to do?
yeah, I do not wish to have any concave shapes or any other creative design as the shape of the sign. I much prefer it to be a rectangle shape. I'm working with a professional graphic designer as well as professional in marketing directing. And we all agree, you know, just looking at the area where I am with the houses around, with Heston Hall being a part of it, as well as where I am on the carriage house, every shape of a window and every shape of a shutter is a rectangle. There's no concave shapes and whatnot. I personally feel that it's conflicting with the simplicity of what I'm trying to accomplish and the simplicity of the area. Also, it's very costly to be cutting out these shapes of the signs. You know, I'm a small business that has a low budget, and you know, personally, I do not like the avant-garde shapes that were recommended. And I'd like to see the original vision.
I understand. So before we continue, we'll need a motion.
Do we have a copy of what it's gonna look like?
Yeah, here.
Sent to us,
I'll bring it up in a second.
yeah, but before we make a discussion, is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
A motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor McCartney to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 1790 Yardley Langhorne Road, Barbarino Barbershop, Yardley sign. Okay, so we can pull up the picture.
Is this, as he's doing that, is this a new location?
No.
Well, it's not. Okay.
No.
So he's
It's going to be put up against the side of the house or the shop, next to a window.
trying to make sure I'm looking at the right barber shop, right?
Yeah, but it's a rectangle.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
The new sign is a
Yeah,
rectangle.
yeah. Okay, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
Know where
just
to shop.
changing up.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of the rounded, it's going to be a rectangle to match the windows shapes. Am I right, Mr. Vito?
Yes, correct. And the sign specifically would be 4.5 inches wide by 6 feet long.
How large is the window next to it?
I don't have those dimensions off the top.
Yeah, I get you.
I don't have those at the top of my head. I believe it's roughly 40 inches from the last time I checked, which is.
All right. So your
What
proposed
inches
sign's
wide?
about the same size as what's shown on the screen here, just instead of basically this, I think what the Harp was probably trying to do is make it look, because you see the window separation where you have the semicircle window on top. They're trying to mimic, I guess, but.
No,
Actually, this is what he has proposed
Oh, that's
That
what
was
it,
the
to
original.
match the window.
oh,
Yeah, Harb.
but he wanted a straight rectangle.
Well, he does now. So do you want the arch top or do you want the rectangle top?
I do not. I want I would like the rectangle shape, just a
Just a plain rectangle.
rectangle.
A plain rectangle.
That was the last design submitted to the Harb. The Harb wanted something like this.
Yeah, the Harb.
I-
one-
This,
Yeah,
but he's saying that that's over his budget. Now, does Mr. Majewski, does the sign, the rectangle sign, meet the guidelines stated in the Harb district, or in the Edgewood Village district?
Yeah, the guidelines kind of say that they don't want to have any odd shapes or,
A rectangle is not an odd shape.
correct. It's just a difference in opinion on what they thought would look better out there.
I guess I should ask. I have gotten several haircuts from, it's from, you can't tell now because the reason was not, but I just want to make sure. I didn't realize they were, that Barbarino and Trombino were the
I
same.
don't think you're going to profit no matter which is.
I'm gonna lose no matter what. Yeah. They do give a good haircut. I'll give you
There you
that.
go. Free
Sounds like you're
commercial.
winning to me.
Jim, is that the new sign that you have there?
Yeah, it's not cooperating right now.
Can you just maybe scroll to the top just to,
No, it's the same logo, but a rectangle instead of the arched
understand?
rectangle.
Understand.
Sorry about
The
that.
same basic shape, same basic size, if I remember. It'll just be a rectangle.
There was also a rendering of a flower box in that. Is that part of the proposed, or is that something that the landlord's going to be doing?
Is that to me?
I mean, yeah, or to Jim. Jim, in that rendering, was that flower box? Was that a Harb edition, or was that something that I believe it's a Troilo property? So it is
I think the flower box is part of the window.
I think Harb had recommended that to Mr. Tribino. And is that acceptable to you? I thought it was.
To me, yes, it is. I liked it.
Yeah, I think they wanted to put that on there because it sort of balanced out the size of the sign a little bit better by adding that extra little bit.
flower
of depth.
box. Okay.
There'll be a flower box.
Geez, I feel obligated to tell people where I get my haircut, but at this point, given the difference in how your hair looks much better, maybe I should
Did this
visit.
myself, actually.
Oh, okay.
Theirs are still better.
Two things. I'm inclined to support the revised sign. I don't have a problem with it. I would say that if you're asking my marketing opinion and you're not, the scallop sign actually would provide some more visual appeal, but I think this is within your discretion in terms of, you know, what's appropriate and what you think's best for your business. So I don't have any problems with it.
Any other comments, questions by the board? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the certificate of appropriateness signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Go make your sign, Mr. Trombino.
Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate all you do for the community.
Have a good night.
Thanks,
Take care, everybody.
Yep.
Take care. Okay, we'll go to super. I think that's it. Thank you, sir. Item 15, supervisor reports. You heard everything I need to say already. Ms. Blundy.
I don't have anything to say. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis.
Farmland Preservation met yesterday, and it was a general discussion on operations. They did indicate a willingness to work with the township on potential future acquisitions of farmland within the community. And the Historical Commission has been doing tremendous work in terms of restoring the Slate Hill Cemetery, in terms of cleaning the tombstones. And we're, I think, still awaiting the results of our ground penetrating radar work to see what we're going to find. But it's actually, for those who are interested, the Historical Commission is doing some really interesting stuff in terms of what happened in the Slate Hill Cemetery. For folks wondering, one of the oldest tombstones there is 1690. To kind of give you a perspective, it may be the oldest cemetery within Bucks County and possibly further. Many of the ones in Philadelphia have been obviously reclaimed and changed. So there's a significant amount of history, and some of the folks that we were looking for may have died in smallpox in the late 1600s, which is interesting, including the Yardley family, is sort of the namesake of the borough in the area. So they're doing very interesting work, and there are volunteer opportunities. So in terms of the chance to help clean up, we had a wonderful time during the cleanup, got to meet some new people, got to get our hands dirty, and had a good time. So there'll be more of those to come throughout the summer. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grainer, Mr. McCartney.
I have nothing to report at this time. Thanks.
Mr. Grainer.
Couple of quick ones. Citizens Traffic met on Monday to review a couple items and confirm installation of a few items. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for confirming. The only other one is tomorrow night, the Trent Mercer Airport Review Board will be meeting if anyone's interested here at the Township Building. Did they cancel? Okay. He called me yesterday to check on some stuff. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe Katie was dealing with that this morning. I'm not certain, but we can confirm that.
Verify that.
Item 16, other business.
One thing I was going to ask earlier during the manager report, and I didn't do it. I got off on other stuff. For Mr. Kratzer, I think it's been about a year since we got the letter from the DEP relative to the finalizing the Act 537 plan.
Yes, yeah, it was about June 6th of 2022. Yes, yep.
I think you picked it, you found it, I guess, for lack of a better description, come January when you got on board.
Correct. Yes.
As that kind of addresses some of the finalization of the sale and the, not necessarily the sale, but the conditions, requirements that we maybe have to deal with.
Yeah.
Status on that.
So I've been interfacing with Fred Ebert, who was the consulting engineer on the sanitary side. He's indicated to me that he has essentially prepared a draft response. He is part of his process. He reviewed that draft response with Aqua because some of those obligations are in essence, sort of transferable, if you will, to Aqua. I've not received that letter from him yet. I also intended to perhaps reach out to the department as well, direct, to try to just understand, process a little bit better. But it is in motion, and I'm hopeful that that letter is forthcoming and we can resubmit to the department.
And I'm assuming Mr. Ebert is coordinating with Aqua, but that's stuff that we're committing to. So I'm assuming that's something our folks will have to review.
Correct. We'll have to review it prior to the submission back to the department as the current permittee on that from the department's perspective. Yes.
We should, hopefully Mr. Ebert is listening and will be responsive.
Hopefully that is the case. Yeah.
Yeah, we're also the enforcement DEP of the 537 plan.
Yeah.
We'll never transfer. The obligation to perform is Aqua's, but
yeah,
we have to deal with it.
Yeah. So we that's to your point. It's important that that letter gets
Exactly.
Yep. Absolutely.
finalized and we get it done.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's it for me.
There's no appointments to boards and commissions, so we'll go to item 18, public comment. Any public comment? Come on up, give your name. You're a Lower Makefield resident, and you've got 3 minutes or so.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe that his microphone is on.
Or at least we can't hear him.
How about now? Is that operating?
It's not working.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you got it?
There you go.
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. Okay, let me start again. Good evening. My name is Leonard McMullen. I live at 394 Twig Lane with my wife Shanice McMullen. We are 29-year residents in Yardley. And first, I'd like to say I really appreciate all the work that you guys do. Listening over the last couple of months, it's amazing what you deal with and all the decisions you're making. I think the statue program that's around the parks right now is fantastic. So thank you for everything. And I learn all kinds of things, including where to get haircuts. So I appreciate that. My property is adjacent to the Bethel property, which, as you know, has been proposed for the Verizon cell tower project. And I know you've heard from many of my neighbors over the last many meetings that have gone through the board about our concerns with the project itself. This is my first opportunity to be here with the board and thought I'd take the opportunity to do the same. Our concerns center around the impact of the project itself on the characteristics or the character of our neighborhood. These structures as proposed are fondly or not so fondly referred to as Frankentrees, and will have a substantial impact on the characteristics of our neighborhood, and just don't belong in an area that's zoned for a residential area. There are many, many homes around this area. I'm sure you're familiar with the area. I invite you to walk the area if you haven't been back there. During the summer months, you can be a little bit fooled from the Bethel property because the tree growth is full right now. In the winter months, it's very obvious what's there during the winter season, as you can see through the tree lines. There are other concerns around pre-existing water management issues there from past expansions of the parking lot, which have led to a lot of water problems in our yards along that area. This project would only serve to aggravate those issues as well. Impact on the biodiversity of our area and our local ecosystem, which is quite unique. In many ways, I think we've developed our own little wetlands back there, given the rainwater runoff. So we see a lot of aquatic, I see certainly a lot of box turtles, frogs, other aquatic animals back in the area. My area that I have a deep concern about, given the location of my property is directly adjacent and serves as one of the largest properties along the Bethel property line. Dr. Manarino, who's also here this evening, his property is probably a bit larger than mine, and maybe the only one that exceeds that is the township itself, who shares tax parcels, property-owned land along that area as well. So my concern is that we're going to be, or what's proposed to be built is a 155-foot tower when you include the lightning rod that will be attached to the tower. My property line is 150 feet from the tower. And my home, my family room, where I enjoy my life, is 260 feet from the tower. So I have concerns about my safety, my personal safety, my neighbor's safety. Included in the project will be a diesel generator, which I know will only run when there's a power outage, but it will contribute noise when it does. And they're quite loud if you haven't been around diesel generators, and a 200-gallon diesel fuel tank as well, which just introduces hazards into the area, which just shouldn't be there in a residentially zoned area. And I ask that you please consider that as you move forward. So there have been a number of safety concerns over the years with towers like this. Just recently in 2021 in Upper Dublin Township, we had a tower of 125 feet that fell over or collapsed due to tornadoes in the area. And then a number of years ago in Ben Salem, there was a much smaller tower of 75 feet that had caught fire and was unstable, and had to be a safety zone was established of about 300 feet around the structure. So I'm here tonight to encourage the board as you move forward with this matter to make a clear position on this proposed project, a position that I hope is in opposition to the project. I know that you're pursuing a number of alternatives right now. It would be I would like to know if there's any chance that you could serve and provide any kind of update on discussions with Verizon themselves on the status of alternative sightings of the tower. Mr. Kratzner just walked out. I know he was involved in those discussions, or at least was planning to be. And then also any status updates on discussions with Cohen Law Group that's been hired to advise the board on its possible alternative actions and representation, and the threats from, I call threats, maybe hollow threats from Verizon regarding their recourse if they were denied a zoning approval. And then maybe when the board would be reconsidering their position on this matter, when it would come up for vote with the board again, to reconsider a motion that was originally put in front of the board back in March at the March 15th board meeting about participation in the zoning board hearing meeting. That's my comments. Thank you. And if you have any responses to those questions, I would deeply appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. In terms of communication with Verizon, there's been no, excuse me, no additional communication. Again, the hearing is set to recommence in August. Our understanding is that they were looking at some alternative locations, but we haven't seen anything at this point. In terms of the interaction with Cohen Law Group, we did have what I would call a kickoff meeting with them last week, in which they met with myself, Mr. Majewski, and Mr. McClune in our office, and just went over sort of the application materials and so forth. So they're really beginning their work in earnest at this point. So there's no real substantive update other than they are reviewing matters and will be advising the board. They're aware of the date in which the zoning hearing board meeting is set to recommence on this issue. So I've asked them to get the material to me prior to the board's meeting on the 19th, the Board of Supervisors meeting on the 19th of July, so that they have that information to make a decision as to what they're going to do prior to the recommencement of the hearing, I think, which is on August the 4th. Is it?
August 1st.
I'm sorry, I think you're correct. August 1st, yeah.
So the only other board meeting between now and the July.
Is the July 19th meeting. That is correct. Yep.
So maybe that answers the third question about when it would appear again, I guess, for reconsideration. Yep. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening.
I'm Tony Manarino, 405 Stony Hill. Again, I admire your stamina. So I'm not going to speak on what I was going to speak because it would take too long. But just briefly, again, the United States, see, we're not allowed to talk about health risks because of the the Federal Telecommunications Act. We can talk about it, but we can't consider it, right? You can't consider it. Nobody can consider it. But what we can talk about is that the safety standards are wrong and that this tower would not be allowed to be built anywhere else in the world, basically, except for maybe Japan. Israel would not allow this tower to be built. Chile, I mean, I could go on and on and on. So I bought a copy of the power density standards for the planet right here, and I'd like to just give them to you. You could see that the United States is at a 10 watts per meter squared. We'd be laughed at by almost every other industrialized country on the planet. Russia is 0.02. China is 0.1. We're not talking close. We're talking logarithmic magnitudes away from reality. So just to give you one example of what this radiation does, because this is microwave radiation. This right here is fluorescein dye. Fluorescein dye, I've injected thousands of people with this dye. You inject it into a person, travels through the body, into the veins, into the eye, but it doesn't cross what's called the blood-brain barrier or the blood-eye barrier, right? So there are things that are not allowed in your brain. There are things that are not allowed in your eye. So we inject this dye and we look to see where it winds up. It has to stay inside the vessels, inside the arteries, inside the veins. If it leaks, there's a problem. So here's the thing. If I inject this into your eye and it leaks outside of where it belongs, you either have macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, you have lupus or some sort of collagen vascular, just hundreds of different diseases that we could diagnose based on where this dye goes. But if I take a normal, healthy person and I expose them to normal cellular radiation and I inject this dye, it's going to leak. And it leaks into the eye and it leaks into the brain. And these studies are not new. I can show you studies from 1992. The Russians have studies from the 60s and the 70s showing this. So we're talking about a tower that doesn't meet civilized standards anywhere but here. So we don't have to talk about the health risks. What we have to talk about is that the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals for DC has already ruled against the FCC, telling them that they were arbitrary and capricious not to revisit their outdated, antiquated standards that were based on work from the 70s and 80s. And we could just say, look, this tower doesn't meet safety standards because it doesn't. So I understand my neighbors talking about that it's ugly, and it is, and that it might fall, and it might. And that what if somebody came up here and said, look, I want a variance to put in a 200-gallon diesel tank in my backyard, just because I want to put a generator in there. How far would I get with that application if I was just a homeowner wanting to put a 200-gallon diesel tank? I'd be laughed at of the zoning hearing board, right? Chief, why did they take the tower down, the water tower at Sesame Place? Do you know? Because somebody shot holes in it, all right? Now we're going to put a 200-gallon diesel tank in our backyard. It's just not the right place for this tower. So I'm sparing you a lot of biochemistry, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Any comment online?
There is no public comment online.
Hearing none, if there is no other business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.